Hi, I'm Greg Sizemore, founder and president of the Construction Users Roundtable, commonly called CURT. You can learn more about us at CURT.org, and you have access Construction Connections, powered by CURT, a series of podcasts designed to bring industry leaders right into your space so you can learn more and be a better, more well-informed decision maker in your part of our wonderful industry called construction. The Construction Users Roundtable primarily focuses on the owner needs. We share perspectives, experiences, and resources together along with our trade partners to help us achieve more construction for the money. It's quite that simple. And today I am really excited to have a long time, multiple decade, although he's not that old, multiple decade friend and business colleague with us, Mr. Brian Stamper. Brian, howdy doody. Glad to have you with us today, brother.
Excited to be here. Excited to be a part of the conversation. I'll go ahead and introduce myself. Brian Stamper, managing partner at Advantic. Advantic Building Group is an organization that we're a structural solutions provider. And what I mean by that is we work with our clients to understand if we can build something faster, we can make it safer, we can lean into the overall productivity of their solutions, and we lean into that with composites. So instead of steel, we have a product that replaces steel, better on the environment, like I said, faster to the install, total installed cost as a whole aids in the industry. We are focused in the mission critical space. So data centers, AI, that's who we are.
That is exciting. We're eager to learn more about that. Brian's got a bachelor's in construction management from the University of Cincinnati, actually worked in our organization very early on in his career out of school. And he really works at that intersection where construction innovation and advancement building materials meet and provide infrastructure, as he said. So Advantic focuses on changing, what I understand, how the industry views structural systems and project delivery. What problem did you see that the traditional construction industry convinced you to address with an organization like Advantic, Brian?
Yeah, one of the things that, early days, well, I'm going to back up a little bit. One of the things that we noticed in construction, going back to the CLMA days and the Construction User Roundtable, was, productivity is one of the things that continues to go down. We've all seen the charts that show productivity in all the industries, manufacturing, things of that nature. It's all going up, and then the construction industry continues to go down. And whenever we founded the organization, we wanted to be a part of that change that gets those curves closer together to improve that productivity. And so when we jumped into this, I was actually the first client of Advantic's. So Advantic we were a client of theirs, and we had a job as a mechanical contractor in a fats plant. And in that fats plant, we had to replace a tank and all these things, and had to put a bunch of structural steel around that tank. And we had 2 weeks and an outage to do so. And long story short, I was introduced to Advantic by a mutual friend. And we were able to partner with them and take something that was going to take working around the clock with hot work permits and do it in about 25% of the labor. And that was my aha moment of, that's incredible. We're saving 75% of the labor on a single project, no hot work permits, and we were able to give a client money back at the end of the job. First time in my career that I had expected that. So we called Advantic and said, hey, we'd love to be your sales arm. We'd love to be so this makes a lot of sense. And they actually said, why don't you come on board instead? And that's how we got there. And it's been a fun journey.
I like that. And how long have you been with them now, Brian?
So it'll be 9 years this September. And we got into data centers just over 8 years ago.
Unbelievable how that time moves on like that. So what, in addition to doing environmentally friendly, composite versus traditional steel, easier to manage, to manipulate, to install, etc., what other advantages do you see with the product that you're providing?
So the big thing that we've seen is taking a more of a manufacturing approach to construction, right? So I go back to actually my senior project in at University of Cincinnati, all the way back when Bob Volkman from Procter and Gamble was teaching us about modularization strategies and improving productivity in the middle of nowhere in Africa for a plant that they built.
Yeah.
So I go all the
Right.
way back to the University of Cincinnati and start to think about
Love it.
what are these individuals that are thought leaders in the space trying to
Yeah.
how they transforming the space. So we with composites, what's really nice, you got a product that doesn't need welded, it's bolted connections, things of that nature. It's 80% lighter than steel. It aids really, really well in that manufacturing mindset and creating systems that are extremely scalable for an industry that's repeatable. And what I mean by that is in data centers, we're building the same components over and over
Yeah.
again. You need to take more of a manufacturing mindset, and that's where composites really aid immensely, just due to their lightweight, due to the lightweight configurable structures.
Yeah, exactly. So before we started the show, you were talking to me about some things that you learned, and this would be great for listeners at CURT that helped inform your business at Advantic. Talk to me a little bit about that. What did you see us doing? What value did CURT bring to you personally and professionally? Yeah, share with our listeners
Yeah.
why CURT.
So there's two areas. Well, actually, there's more than two areas. But we'll start off with the one. I was very involved with the construction labor market analyzer during my time
Right.
there. And
Yeah.
what did that tell us? It told us that there's a massive amount of shortage. The data was empirical. We're looking at the demand cycles of all of this labor that's going to be needed. And then what did it show us? It showed us the gap between the two and how we're going to achieve that. Well, that all has been amplified in the data center space with the amount of expansion that's going on there. So that was one of the areas is, hey, how do we eliminate time on tools in a marketplace that labor is going away, right? And we're not
Yeah.
recruiting at those strategies. And so that was the first thing is, hey, whatever industry, whatever company that I was going to start, it needed to address those concerns. That was one of the pieces. Uh, another one was through the modularization, the stuff that Bill Lewis was doing with his organization there, and just going back and understanding the data and understanding, okay, how are these things being built and where is the actual value in modularization? So we
Yeah.
started to look at prefab versus modularization, and we live in both worlds because sometimes those things, full blown modularization doesn't work where prefab does and vice versa. So we wanted to ensure that whatever we were building was eliminating time on tools in the field. Obviously, the foundation around safety and the things that the construction user roundtable does there, FRP adds an immense amount of value there. So we were basically looking
Yeah.
at what are all of these things that the construction user roundtable owners are worried about. And what we realized really quickly was that we are actually addressing a lot of these constraints that the marketplace is feeling by just bringing in a new material to the marketplace. But I'd say the ultimate thing that I learned at the construction user roundtable is the value of relationships and really truly being able to have true, honest communication with the people that you're working with. And so at Advantic, one of the things that we lean into heavily is core value alignment. And so, at Advantic, our core values are ownership, which for us is own your you know what, own your head. So that's the first one, is ownership. The second one is camaraderie. And then the third one,
Mm.
and so camaraderie is internal and external. Ownership is internal and external. If every player on the team is owning their stuff, and that's it,
Yeah.
that's all us and our partners. If every team is willing to work together, and then the last one is let's come to the table with curiosity instead of trying to solve it exactly how we did in the past. Let's come to it and say,
Yeah.
is there a new way to approach this? And I learned a lot of that just by sitting in the rooms and hearing all these thought leaders. Everything came back to relationships and communication.
Yeah.
And that's probably the largest lesson as a 20 something year old sitting in a room with the leaders across the globe, just absorbing what the issues that they were having.
Okay, so I'm going to have you as one of our special guests next year at the leadership class because they need to hear how it works. We teach that stuff, and you know how seniors are, fifth years especially. So
Yep, I'd
I'm going
love
to
it.
make a note to call you and come share at least half a class
That'd be
with
wonderful.
us next year.
That'd be wonderful.
Yeah, we love it. We love it. So, as you mentioned, construction's slow to adopt to new procedures. Sometimes the older folks, the gray hairs that's been around a while, are averse to new methods and new materials, what are some of the biggest misconceptions that you encounter when introducing an innovative building system such as Advantic
Yeah, it's
offers?
a great question. It's one that we don't really actually think about that much now, but I'll tell you, early
Right?
days, that was all we thought about. So,
Yeah.
and I would say when you're looking at disrupting a model and you're looking to do it in the oldest industry that I'll go back to Pete Dumont had a quote one time that has resonated with me for however long it's been, 15 plus years. He said,
Yeah.
if we were to build the aqueducts today, we would use the same materials, we'd use the same everything. Only thing that'd be different is that we'd sue each other at the end. And that resonated with me so much. We're not changing.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, man, if you have a product that is increasing speed, all of the things that you're worried about, there has to be some sort of adoption process. So what we did as an organization early on is we leaned into non-critical applications. We said, hey, we've got to get the marketplace to adopt a different solution than what they're typically doing. So let's start in non-critical aspects. And so what we did there was we leaned in to what we call our swagger work now. It's not spelt the exact same way. It's S as for stairs, walls, the walls around the generator yards, grading, access. So those are your access platforms, a rail, and there's no E. So it's swagger without rail, without the E. So, but that became those were non-critical applications in data centers
Yeah.
that we could dive into, and we had to build case history, and we had to prove that it had the structural life. Hey, these are all your boxes you need to check. They're not going to just come to you and say, "Hey, build our critical infrastructure," unless those boxes are checked. So that was step
Yeah.
one. Step two, we had to come up with a scalable process. We had to make it where it could be extremely repeatable because of the amount of demand. And so that became the very quickly for us is once our clients started to adopt us as a solution, the next question they ask is, hey, now that we've adopted it, how fast can you scale it? And so that became
Yeah.
the opposite of it. And it was very interesting is I don't think about getting clients to adopt our product anymore. I think about, hey, when we partner, I need to ensure that that our supply chain is correct and that we can deliver at the levels that you're expecting us to. So we couldn't
Yeah.
jump off
Right.
in that critical infrastructure space. Initially, we had to start off with things that people are willing to give a new company and then over time proved out those manufacturing processes, and then that became allowed for that scale to get into that critical infrastructure.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. Now, I know you're focusing on data centers, and data centers are focusing on the industry. We all know about data centers. What do you feel most professionals still underestimate when it comes to the scale and speed of data center development?
There,
What does the other owner need to know? What do the
yeah.
other contractors? What do the industry need to know about data centers that may not be obvious on our initial inspection of those
Well,
projects?
so it's one of those things. I've been very fortunate and very grateful to be one of the individuals that have been in data centers now for 8 years, right? So data centers haven't been on the news until the last couple years because of
Right,
AI.
right,
And so first we got to
right.
slow down a little bit and understand the difference between an AI build and a data center, right? You have cloud computing and you have AI. The news is all talking about AI as a whole, but it all gets pushed under data centers. But the speed is real. I've worked in every single construction industry pretty much, right? From pharmaceutical to
Yeah.
industrial to oil and gas, medical, pharma, even residential growing up with my father. And the speed of construction in data centers is unmatched. It's unmatched across the board. And it's because and so I've helped some other general contractors get into this space and I said, hey, you've built hospitals, take that and times it by 100 on speed. We're developed like I'll give you an example. I'm on a job currently. We are will be done with fabrication drawings of our solutions before the drawings for the building will be completely complete. So the
Oh,
issue
yeah, I
for
believe it. Yeah.
construction drawings all will not be complete till July. We will be fabricating prior to the entire thing being complete. So what's happening in the speed play is we're running simultaneous paths of a manufacturing mindset along with all the other constraints of typical construction. So the world of data centers is colliding the manufacturing mindset with the construction industry, and we're doing it at hyperscale speed. It's a blast.
What do you think, Brian, the construction industry needs to embrace? What do they really need to do to respond to this? Because I got a feeling we're not backing up on the fast lane of the highway with respect to data centers. They're going to be built, they're going to be erected. I know that a lot of communities resist, and there's a lot of effort, to help the public understand. It's just going to
Yeah.
happen. What does the industry need to do, in your opinion, to properly respond to the tsunami of activity with respect to data centers? Any idea?
Yeah, actually, I have a, I think about this all the time, right? So this is a thought that that the industry is trying to solve. And so
Yeah.
in my perspective, the largest thing is is to bring in the people that know how to build and come up with it's all around communication and partnership strategies to deliver amongst the schedule. You have to have
Mhm.
trust on both sides of the table, right? The owner and the developer needs to know the partners that they're deploying with, understand where the risk points are all the way through supply chain. And so what I mean by all of this is it has to be a collaborative approach in delivery. It's not your design bid build process anymore. It's design assist. It's bringing in the people that have built these for the last 10, 15 years and looked at all the lessons learned that we've had over those years and then bring those experts to the table. I'm not saying IPD contracts, things of that nature. I'm saying getting the experts in a room and putting your ego aside and saying, "Hey, in order for this to work successfully, I need structural, mechanical, electrical, all working succinctly in a thought process to deliver something at scale." And there's no way to do that in the your traditional manner of
Right.
designing something. You go out to the marketplace, you get a bunch of bids, and you come back, you analyze those bids. We need power. We need it all running, and we need it running in a year.
Yeah.
We're talking about from scratching dirt to full blown deployments of hundreds of megawatts in under 24 months.
Yeah.
That's never happened before.
No, not in the history of the world.
No.
No. What impact do you feel that this will have on labor? Now, you were intimately involved in labor analysis early in your career, and what impacts this going to have from your perspective, a unique perspective of a material supplier, on labor?
It's already happening. It's already
Skilled trades
happening, right?
labor.
Yeah, skilled trades
Yeah.
labor, it's becoming extremely constrained. And
Yeah.
just as and
Uh,
it's simultaneous with the supply chain becoming constrained, right? So if you there's word of a specific very wealthy individual buying 25% of all the steel capacity in the United States currently to build his massive facilities. So those
yeah.
things are going to create those constraints. Labor constraints are real. We're seeing it across the board in
Yeah.
electrical and
That's
mechanical.
right.
So the materials that we are utilizing need to play into that hand. If you don't have welders, what are you going to do? You have to come up with another solution because the demand's not going to stop. So we as an industry have to be solution based and looking at, okay, where are the constraints to achieve X, Y, and Z, and what is everybody else around us doing that are amplifying the constraints, and then there's a lot of those components that we need to dive into along that workup. But I think tools like the CLMA and things of that nature that we can start to truly understand the impacts of where the labor constraints are is going to be huge. But we feel it every day, and that's one of the things that and when I say
Yeah.
we, that's the industry. Advantic, or
Right.
the modular approaches we take, keeping people in a controlled environment will limit the amount of hours deployed on site, which allows for that. It's real though, and it's going to take the whole industry working collaboratively to achieve the demand that is there.
So let's be a little forward looking with respect to CURT. If you were king for the day at CURT, what other services, what could CURT do to help achieve that creative thinking, the collaboration, the trust factor? Are there other areas that we should begin looking at? We've always delved into safety,
Yeah.
workforce, productivity improvement, lean project delivery. You've seen it, modularization, pre-assembly, project excellence with respect to creative contracting. In the interest of new and different, and I'm sure you haven't had a chance to think about it too closely, but where else should we be playing ball?
Well, one of the things, yeah, I wasn't thinking about that question. So let me think about that for just a second. What ari
Sure.
what arises first for me is I think CURT has done an amazing job over its history of getting the leaders to work together, right? I think you've done an amazing, so I'm going historically. I think the conversations that CURT has had, and how many years has CURT been around now? 30,
25,
25?
going on
Okay,
26.
26 years. So 26
Yeah.
years. In those 26 years, the amount of conversations that have had to aid in the furthering of the industry, you have an immense amount of case history. You have an immense amount of things that
Yes.
have worked, right? And I think that that information needs to come to the data center industry in a manner that it can be absorbed in real time as fast as the industry is moving. I don't know how
You
that
and I ought to talk about what that
I
looks
don't
like.
know what that looks like, but I
I
would,
don't
yeah,
either. That's a
I re
but,
yeah,
it all starts with the what if possibility.
yeah,
It all starts with what if, and that's how anything that has ever been of value started is what if. Then it's dealt with the resistance that always comes with any advancement.
yeah,
Then you overcome it with momentum. You overcome it with just, creating greater buy-in. But
yeah.
maybe we'll have an offline conversation about what that might look like in the days ahead. We're certainly interested in exploring that for sure. So, this would be a good time also to inform our listeners who may not be aware that CURT did do some of what Brian suggested, and that is in the last several months, really since, about the last 10 months, we've been working on a platform called Commodore. It is an AI platform, and what we've done is take 30,000 elements, every article, every presentation, every PowerPoint, every benchmarking survey, every white paper, every panel discussion, every national conference, everything that CURT has in its body of knowledge. And we have consolidated it into what's called the CURT Solutions Portal, or CSP. And it allows you to ask questions in real time and in seconds give you an answer that gives citations. It doesn't hallucinate like ChatGPT or Claude or some of the others and give you what it thinks you need. It is absolutely contained and it's traceable. It's cited. Every answer that it gives you a citation to the source. You can click on that and see greater detail and context about the source of its answer. We've also added the OSHA regulations to it. So if it's a safety question, it will cite the relevant OSHA regulations. Here's the cool part: CSP is free to all of our member firms and their representatives. And if you'd like to know more about CSP or get a demo for it or wonder how it can maybe help your firm, then we invite you to go to the CURT.org website. You'll see plenty of contacts there: names, telephone numbers, email addresses, and just make a request for our office, and we'd be glad to show you the CURT Solutions portal and assess whether or not it might be of help to your organization. Think of it as a construction consultant in your pocket. Available 24/7. It's also available in many languages. So I invite you to check it out. So, Brian, if you could design or redesign the traditional project delivery process that has sustainability now in it, and I think your product also addresses sustainability. What are some of the things that we need to be thinking about relative to sustainability? Have you seen an increase or a decrease in the interest in sustainability
Oh,
these days in our industry?
that's a great question. I actually just spoke at GBI here recently, which is a green building initiative
Oh
in
yeah.
Dallas, and we were talking on this specifically. So the one thing that we talked about within that is we're looking at as a whole your traditional. So we actually started off with, here's your traditional type of delivery mechanism, which is what we talked about: design, bid, build. This is how data centers need to be deployed, and that's bringing your people in early on. That's bringing in all your trade partners that can affect that. Well, in order to
Hmm.
design and deliver a sustainable data center, that conversation needs to be a KPI driven from conversation number one, right? So that needs to be incorporated all the way through your supply chain. and it needs to be something that's driven as a directive from the developer or the hyperscaler that we're working with or the language model that we're working with. And they that portion has to be dictated. It can't be thought of retroactively. And what we've seen is the ones that have a commitment to this net zero, some of them by 2030, things of that nature, they are specifying in saying, hey, if you're going to utilize steel, we need LCAs, and we need to understand that those LCAs and those EPDs are for this, this, and this. And then so that has to be written in really early. I wouldn't say that people are purchasing on sustainability today. They're purchasing on schedule. That is number one. However, the industry is definitely leaning into sustainability as a whole,
Yeah,
saying that this is
that's right.
something that we need to address. So I would say that as a whole, the industry's number one concern is getting done on time. That is their number
Hmm.
one
Hmm.
concern. If
Yeah,
for a product for a sustainable product to be successful in the data center space, like a composite material, it has
right.
to be able to achieve the schedule first. So
Yeah.
for it, a sustainable product to be adopted, it has to be able to fit into the ecosystem of the data center delivery model. So that, or it just won't be addressed. That being said, I believe that there are sustainable processes and procedures and products that aid in the overall project beyond sustainability. And I think that's where you have to look at that multiplier effect of sustainability as a whole. So within composites, yes, we are better on the environment. We have a lower embodied carbon as a whole. But if I'm making your job 2 times longer or 2 times more expensive, is that sustainable? No. So
Yeah.
that's where we lean in there.
What about safety? How does your product affect safety in our business? It's again, it's other than schedule, it's probably safety, and then of course cost or budget.
Yep.
So talk to us about the safety impact
Sure.
of your product, and then generally speaking, this supercharged data center business.
Mhm.
How is it from your viewpoint? Because you have a unique one as a supplier. How does it impact safety? First of all, your product relative to safety.
Sure. So composites, there's multiple areas, right? So if you're reducing the overall system weight by 60+%, that inherently is going to aid in the safety factors across the
Yeah,
board. What does that do? If I have a beam that I can pick up by hand and move it, that's much safer than pulling in a crane and picking it up and moving it, right? So just the lightweight side aids immensely in safety. Um,
yeah, missed
so
safety.
you're
Yeah,
eliminating a ton of equipment, eliminating, and then the next one is our connections are all bolted connections. Now we don't have any, we're not throwing any, we're instead of welding, we're bolting. That inherently is a safer process. We're cutting, we
yeah,
don't throw sparks, right? So if we're cutting our product, I don't need to have hot work permits to do so. You can just cut it
right.
with carpentry tools. So within that, there's the composites or they aid immensely in that safety side. When it comes to the data center side, it's just like anything else in construction. You have to be focused on safety. And
Hmm.
it's something that we think about on a regular basis. It's something that we work with in aiding the industry, and all of the bigs are involved in the data center space, right? So the safety culture it's there. It's continuing to uh, to be driven, which is something we like to be a part of.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So we've dealt with the workforce implication, the safety implication, the modularization, pre-assembly aspect of the product. We've talked about the need for the culture to be right, collaboration, creativity, communication, trust. You rattled off a whole litany of elements. What else have I not asked about that you feel we need to know about A, your product, B, the data center revolution, if you will, and D, the impact on our business? Is there something
Yeah.
you'd like to share that I haven't asked about yet, curiously?
Yeah, my favorite part, and that is
Okay, let's
that
go.
is company culture. So I would
Yeah,
say
that's right.
I would say
Mhm.
that the number one thing about Advantic has been our culture. So I'll tell you a little story of whenever we started the organization. It was the founding members of our group. We were sitting around having a couple ice cold beers, talking about who we wanted to be when we grew up. And we said, what is it that we want Advantic to be? And things that were running through my head was, this is a place that my kids would want to work at, that we would want our kids to work at, things of that nature.
Uh-huh.
And the founder, the guy who started the company, he looked around, he said, you know what? I just want to work with cool people and build cool stuff. Or he actually didn't say stuff. So I was like, CPCS, cool people, cool shit, is what I said. Right? It's like, hey, this is perfect. So CPCS was the foundation of our organization. Cool people, cool stuff, cool people, cool shit, whatever you want to say. And that became our recruiting strategy. But that became something we had to live up to. Right. So
Yeah.
when you say,
Yeah, that's right.
so it's
That's
something
right.
we have to live up to as an organization. So what does
Yeah.
that mean? What does it mean to build a culture around psychological safety where people that they come to work and they can be themselves, and they can also aid in the overall success of the organization. So culture became one of those things very early on that we wanted to lean in on. And then what we really just and there's all these cultures out there that, hey, the warm and fuzzies, and we're gonna put massage chairs in. No, not that. It's the culture of building the camaraderie of an organization to change a
Right.
space. So what we noticed is if each person showed up as their authentic self, they all took ownership of their work, they worked well with others, and they were curious about how they delivered, you're unstoppable. You are unstoppable. And so what we always look at is, where is the resistance at in our organization? If the
Yeah.
resistance will always take you to the answer, because what you'll understand is, if I'm feeling resistance in my organization, there must be a reason for it. So what we
Yes.
started to lean into was, hey, we need each person working within their genius. I don't know if you've heard that term, but so there's a
Yeah.
book.
Sliver of genius. You use it in the leadership class.
Yeah, so there's Patrick Lencioni had a book, The Six Working Types of Genius. And so he says there is, you can have two geniuses, which those are two things that give you energy, right? And it's kind of like cogs in a
Mhm.
wheel that go across. And there's six. I live in the far left in ideation and wonder. I love living there, but on the far right is getting the job done, right? And tenacity. So you need to
Yeah.
ensure that your leadership of your organization doesn't have any gaps along the geniuses. And then what the
Yeah.
ultimate goal of the organization is, the two geniuses that drain you, so you can work in two that give you energy, two that just are, right? Those are just two. And then there's two that will completely drain you as a human. Don't work at all in the area that drains you. Work where you get where the overall genius gives you energy and where it doesn't drain you. And if each person in our organization is leaning into their genius, the 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 way that we can propel forward as an organization is exponential. And it's that's
Boy,
my
that is
favorite part.
really good. Did that all come out of that book? The what'd you call it? The Six Working Types of
Uh,
Genius.
that
Is that foundation laid in that
It's laid in
book?
that book. It is laid in that book, but living it,
Who is
and
the author?
Patrick Lencioni.
Yeah, I want to make sure we highlight that for those who may be listening. About Brian, you're exactly right, and as you've executed on the plan, you have found that to their assumptions to be true.
Yeah, and
Their
100%.
assertions.
And then the last piece is, you got to put your ego aside and be willing to learn. Every single
Yeah.
day, there's an opportunity to learn. I don't have all the
Hmm.
answers. I've worked in this industry for a really long time. But what I do know is that when we work together and we put that ego aside and we can say, hey, yes, this is your area of expertise. This is and we can pull that all together and we can get those cogs of those geniuses working together. It's such a fun process.
How do you do it? So there's one thing to have the
Mhm.
strategy. There's another thing to execute on
Yeah.
strategy. Who owns it, and how do you actually implement it in an organization? Execute it on point.
Sure, that's a great question. It has to start from the top, though, right? So
Yeah.
we have a pretty large executive team. And what I mean by that, we have three managing partners and then we have six executives. And so one was getting that, it's kind of like puzzle pieces in a way, right? To
Yeah.
ensure that
Right.
executive team, and it took us, it's not something you think you could just start off that way. It'd be awesome if that's the
Yeah.
case, but that goes back to lessons learned. So one, you have
Yeah.
to start off with understanding your genius, right? So So we had to start at the top. The group had to start working together, and it was pretty simple from an executive team to figure out what each person's genius is. Like, for instance, I know my brother is incredible. He runs operations for us. Isaac does. He runs operations, and he's amazing at getting the job done. He's amazing of.
By the way, please tell Isaac I send him my
I
warmest
will.
personal
I
regards.
will. I will for
Please
sure.
do. Because we were in touch years ago,
Yeah.
when he's considering medical school and all that back in college. I'm so happy to hear that he's found his niche and found his place,
Absolutely.
especially with his older brother, whom he adored. I guess we may be waxing a little too personal for the podcast, but
No, it's
more on that to come.
that's it. I
He's a good man.
100%
He's a
will.
good man, good resource.
And so you have those
I don't want
spectrums.
anybody listening trying to recruit Isaac Stamper away from Advantic. Don't do that.
No,
All right.
absolutely not. So within that, it started at that level, and then we had to examine each team, right? So each executive had to look and say, okay, well, this is where my weak points are. I need to now look
Mhm.
at balancing this team, because in engineering, maybe we are all tenacious and we're all very big on discernment, right? We question everything, but we want to get stuff done. Well, we need somebody in ideation and wonder as well in that engineering department that can say, well, have we thought about it this way? Is this solution? And because if you're only working in tenacity and the discernment area, you're not going to be able to understand where ideation and wonder. So you have to make sure in each one of those departments that it's overall balanced and how it helps for the overall goals of the organization.
Yeah, this is really good. In fact, I think we're going to follow up on this more on that later. If you can hang out after we're finished
Sure.
here. You mentioned something called psychological safety.
Yep.
It really rings a bell because in recent years, there was an element of safety that was always in the shadows, never talked about, stigmatized, and that is mental wellness.
Yep.
Recently, in safety programs throughout our industry, mental wellness has been addressed. Uh, the more harsh term is suicide prevention. I heard a statistic the other day that said between 11 and 1,400 people are significantly injured in construction each year, but 5,000 we
Wow.
lose because they've chosen to make the irreversible decision. So a lot of companies now, contractors, owners, etc., are making mental wellness a key component of their safety program. Have you
Yeah.
seen evidence of this either internally with your group, evidence of, bringing the mental wellness element into the mainstream, out into the sunlight so it can be addressed and we can make some progress on it? Or have you seen it in the industry? What are your thoughts on that particular issue, Brian?
Man, I have a lot of thoughts on this issue.
No
So,
kidding. Me
yeah,
too.
so this is one that's near and dear to my own being, right? So I'll tell a little personal story, right? So in Advantic, we've been growing exponentially on a path that's been incredible. We're very, very blessed and grateful for that. But along that is the never ending red line, right? The never ending red line of demand. And
Yeah.
I love that we each individual has it, right? We know how to get to that red line. We know those things. But within that is, okay, where's your burnout? And if the
Yeah, right.
executives, if the people that own the organizations burn out, what does that tell me about each individual person within my organization? If I'm leading from a place of burnout, that's where it starts, right? If each individual leader is burnout, how can I expect that my team is going to be remotely okay? So it starts at the top. And I believe that a massive responsibility for entrepreneurs is to work on themselves. Because if
Yeah.
an entrepreneur is not mentally healthy and they are pushing that down amongst their teams, there's 0% chance that that is going to work, because now that psychological safety is gone because the executive that's leading the team doesn't have it within themselves. So it
Yeah.
starts there. And I'll tell you, I have an immense amount of clients and friends in industry that lean on. We have a groups of people that get together and just talk about the demands of this space on a regular basis because we're
Oh,
growing
no
so fast.
doubt. Yeah.
And when I say these aren't just low, these are the executives that are driving the success. A lot of times I talk to a
Yeah.
friend who runs a very, 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 very large steel manufacturer here in the space. And he told me he was working 18 to 20 hours a day to respond to the demand. And my response to him was, please don't let it kill you. It's not worth it.
Right. 100%.
And so it's an incredible problem that we are seeing.
Yeah.
However, it starts at the top, and you have to be able to be willing to address it. I think the other thing is people want to take the human aspect out of business and create saying that each individual person is a widget, right? Or something of that nature, which is not the case. However, when you
Right.
allow individuals to show up authentically at your organization, not how I expect them to show up, how they need to show up. That will
Yeah.
tell a lot about where they are independently. So one of the things that we do on occasions is what we call MEPS. So we will start a meeting off. It's kind of like a safety meeting. So where are you at mentally? Where are you at emotionally? Where are you at physically? And the last one is where are you at spiritually? And what you're
Yeah.
able to do there is you're able to say, okay, well, mentally I'm scattered. I'm scattered because I have 900 jobs going right now, this, that, and the other. But emotionally, I'm having fun. Physically,
Yeah.
I got up this morning and I got some yoga in. I feel good there. And spiritual, but so as a team, we could say, well, mentally he's exhausted, but we can help there. That's where camaraderie plays. And so you have to be willing to, I keep saying it, set that ego aside and say, hey, this is where I'm at today. And it's one thing
Yeah.
that we really dive into, but then checking in with our guys in the field. Where are you at? How are things? I haven't seen my family in a month. Well, let's hey, I can imagine that now your safety aspects at work aren't going to be where they need to be because you haven't seen your
Right.
family in how long. So
Right.
bringing the human aspect into it is so crucial. And that was the stuff we talked about at CURT back in the day when we were talking about it. It was the workforce
Right.
side, where it's like these are just numbers. No, these are humans that we need to attract to the space. And
Right.
if you're going to attract them to
Right.
the space, how are you going to keep them here if our suicide
Keep them
rates is
here.
high?
Yeah. Yeah. That's huge. But and I am so delighted that you folks have taken that body, mind, soul, spirit, or a mental, emotional, physical,
Yeah,
spiritually part of it. It is the whole
yeah,
person that you bring to the office, bring to the field, bring to the project, bring to the meeting.
yeah.
And if a part of that is tarnished, and I don't think we necessarily are 100% on all areas at all
No, it's
times,
impossible, I
but the
think.
camaraderie helps the support and helps to get us by and at least show that we have support in addressing it. I think a large part of it is, and I don't know, this is all anecdotal, but we, for the first time this year in the leadership course, which has 110
Oh,
people in it now
wow.
at UC, have dealt with mental wellness and not necessarily suicide prevention. That's one aspect of mental
Yeah.
wellness, but of preventing burnout, keeping curiosity alive, keeping creativity alive, keeping communications alive, camaraderie, all that is part of mental wellness. And that is now part of our curriculum with these seniors. And you'd be amazed at how many students coming out are stressed out, anxious, their coping skills are less than ideal. And we do what little part we can at the university level to try to address that, provide resources, insight, knowledge, and understanding. But I think as the industry comes together, as you've just described that your company has done, we're going to really make a significant tick upward in mental and emotional wellness,
Yeah, absolutely.
psychological well-being, or psychological safety, as you mentioned.
So one other thing as you were talking that popped in my head, I,
Yeah,
it's it's kind of a laughing point now, but there shouldn't be any email that sends you into fight or flight mode. So,
yeah,
and we all know that feeling, right? We all know
yeah.
the feeling of getting that email and you feel attacked and all of these things and all these triggers can come up. It's just an email. Fight or flight was not designed for that. Fight or flight was there to save your life. And if our
Yeah.
jobs are creating something where I'm in fight or flight mode, what happens when you get in fight or flight mode? You go into control mode. When you go into control mode, you
Mhm.
eliminate creativity. If you eliminate creativity, there's
Mhm.
0% chance that you're going to allow the right
Yeah,
solution to come into the situation because you're coming from a
that is
place of
so true.
reactivity.
That is so true. We even talked, we've added again to the leadership class, or I have, because I've taught that for years, but it's where I met you
Yep.
in the law class, leadership class, but we've added the whole concept of the importance of creativity. And we bring music in, we bring Kenny Thomas
Oh, that's
in, we
awesome.
bring the founder of HGTV in. You guys have done a great job of recognizing body, mind, soul, spirit, psychological safety, as you call it. And of course, suicide prevention is just one small part, not insignificant, but one part of the overall thing. And I just want to commend you for that, of embracing that, of providing camaraderie and the importance of creativity. You mentioned earlier, you can't possibly, if you're in a position of burnout or overwork or some sort of depression, be creative and find creative solutions when those things are bearing down, and to realize that is really cutting edge. I think our industry is starting to at least look that direction in terms of solutions, but you folks seem to be well ahead of the game, Brian. Hats off to you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we've been talking to Brian Stamper, managing partner of Advantic. He is a longtime friend. Yes, we're talking decades. A longtime friend of mine and our organization. We've had a lot of wonderful experiences together, and we are so delighted to have had this last 45 minutes together. Brian, any final thoughts you want to leave us with as we wind down this episode?
I would say the one thought I have, if there are young people looking at the construction industry as an industry that as a whole, come join it and help be the solution. Come be a part of changing this industry to be one that we'd be proud that our kids go to work for it. I go back and think about my dad saying, Brian, he's a superintendent, right? So I grew up in this space. It was inherited. I inherited construction like most people. And yeah. And so from that, but what did my dad tell me? He said, don't join this industry. And my ultimate goal and Advantic's ultimate goal is to disrupt the space beyond a product, but to disrupt it from the human aspect side of it, to bring the engineers that want to be a part of changing this space to the industry and have fun doing it. It's so much fun to come to this industry and look at it from a creative perspective of how to make it better. And that's what we care about. And that's who we look forward to hire. That's who we look forward to partner with. And as a whole, if you can do that, this is a really fun industry.
Amen to that.
Yeah. So that would be my last thing that would be good to maybe end on there.
I think so. You couldn't have said it any better than you did, Brian. Thank you for that. Come be a part of the solution, make it better, make it attractive. You are involved in the last great American dream industry. As Brian has shared, you can come into the business and start your own and make money and make progress and drive change. It is terrific for those YPs who are listening. You're listening to Construction Connection, powered by CURT. We have had a wonderful time with Brian Stamper, managing partner of Advantic. Brian, thank you once again, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks for joining us.